they're arched right here, right? It looks like they're connected.
Okay.
But this point, if you really were to line it up right here, it would be equal. Like, for example, if this is dry enough, I will lay them on top just to prove it. It burns! It burns! Check that out.
No way.
Ah!
That's cool.
Yeah, isn't that cool? If you guys got that correct, comment below. Or you want to eat this? It's actually really good.
You just gotta bundle it up. Add some chocolate.
I don't know if people have eaten illusions before.
You're right.
We might be pioneering a new restaurant. We can open a restaurant, put it on Yelp.
But we also open up a cooking show.
No one wants to learn from us cooking. I have a freaking pan.
Welcome to Jakarta. As one of the most populous cities in the world, getting around Jakarta can be quite confusing. Notorious for its traffic, the huge metropolis is home to over 10 million people and divided into 5 different districts. So figuring out where do you want to go may be a struggle even if you've never been here before. You're going to need lots of patience and a good sense of humor, because not everything is going to go your way.
Good morning guys, welcome back to Jakarta. So today I am going to attempt to learn how to use the public transportation system here in Jakarta. I've been staying here for an entire week now and basically I've just been using the taxis here. So I feel like it's going to be a pretty difficult process because there's going to be possibly a language barrier and I literally have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm going to try to visit North Jakarta, Central Jakarta, and then South Jakarta, using the 3 types of public transportations here. Last night I did some research and it turns out the easiest way for me to do this is going to be to get a prepaid top-up card. So I learned that I can get these at Indomart or Alfamart. So that is where I'm heading right now and hopefully I won't have any trouble getting one. So I'm walking just down the street from my apartment complex and there's 3 malls here just in this one area. And it's actually a much nicer area because at least they have convenience stores here and little cafes and restaurants you can visit. At my place, there's literally no cafes. Now, in Jakarta, there's 3 types of public transportation you can use. The first of which is the Trans-Jakarta buses. The second is the KRL, which is basically like the commuter trains. They run all around the city as well as down south of Jakarta. And the very last is the new MRT lines, which is basically like the metro system here in Jakarta. So it looks like I'm gonna have to walk into this gated off private apartment building to get to Indomart. Terima kasih. Of course, all the instructions are in Bahasa, so I can't read it. I literally just spent 20 minutes trying to get this card here at Indomart and Alfamart. So let me explain. I went to Indomart because I read online that you can get this card at Indomart. The language barrier was pretty extreme. They couldn't speak English, so I had to use Google Translate. And Indomart said they didn't have the prepaid card. So I went to Alfamart. They had it, but they told me they couldn't top it up. And then I went back to Indomart.
Hey, so a couple of days ago, Elon Musk announced that you can now buy a Tesla using Bitcoins, given for mining Bitcoin. And so I grabbed my Game Boy and got started. Now my goal was to use an original, unmodified Game Boy. I want to plug in a cartridge and start mining. But to mine, we need to somehow communicate with the Bitcoin node. Game Boy has a link port, which is normal protocols, and I was really looking forward to making use of that. If you're interested in learning more about the programmable I/O feature, we SHA-256 it twice, and then we treat the resulting hash as a 256-bit number. We then compare it again. If our hash is small, the speech double hash, we check on the Game Boy. Receive the 76-byte large data and the target value from the mining software running on a computer and start hashing on the Bitcoin networks. If not, first we need a way to pile ROMs onto the Game Boy. I also modified. Our problem is that the 4-channel bidirectional laying around the Pico connected to. If you are interested in getting started with Game Boy development, Modern Vintage Gamer released a great video on how to set up and use GBD250 fit into the theme. It first receives the block data 0.5 Bitcoin to our Bitcoin node. After adding some more checks and also a nice Bitcoin sprite that moves across the screen as we are mining, we have the mining software done and nicely running on our Game Boy. Next, let's look at the firmware for the Raspberry Pi Pico, which acts as our USB to link cable adapter. It has 3 signals via link cable. The clocks will be connected to each simply via the level shifter. Let's also take the initial on its serial. This is important to remember, roughly 8 kHz, so we get roughly 1 kb/s transfer. All we have to do is to talk serial interface. Let's go to the Bitcoin node. To initially try to do this at a mining software. Now AT mine data to our Game Boy, we mine a block. It will also notify. Start the miner on the computer, wait for it to transfer the data, and yes, it's working. The Game Boy received all required data and is now happily chugging along. Unexpectedly, you can actually hear it working. There's a certain signature coil whine when it's running that's hard to capture on camera. On the screen you can see the nodes increasing and the hash rate is pretty impressive, roughly 0.8 hashes per second. If you compare that to modern ASIC miner, which comes in at around 100 terahashes per second, you can see that we are almost as fast, only off by a factor of roughly 125 trillion. At this rate, it should only take us a couple of quadrillion years to mine a Bitcoin. And remember that ASIC miners use a ton of power, while our Game Boy simply runs on 4 AA batteries. Big success. Now to see whether the Game Boy miner is really able to mine blocks, I've also set up a new empty Bitcoin blockchain with a very low difficulty. And the Game Boy is indeed able to successfully mine blocks for it. Pretty cool, blockchain on the Game Boy. Obviously, mining Bitcoin on a Game Boy is everything but profitable, but I learned a lot of things while building this and definitely had a ton of fun. By the way, if you want to experiment with the Game Boy hardware, you can now order the Breakout and ROM cartridge that Live Overflow and me showed in our Game Boy series a while ago. You can find the link. Hey, so a couple of days ago, Elon Musk announced that you can now buy a Tesla using Bitcoins. Given that news, one thing was clear to me. I needed to get into the Bitcoin mining game. Hey, did you know that the very first version of Windows 95 accepted simply 10 ones as a valid CD key? I didn't, and when I was recently installing Windows 98 on an old computer, a friend of mine, John Sawyer, aka JCase on Twitter, told me about it, and that got me curious. How exactly did the serial check of Windows 95 actually work? And why would it accept a very simple key such as 111-111111 later? Once we replace such as 333, if we replace it with all zeros, it still works. 8 doesn't work, 9, 10. What do all these numbers have in common? The remainder. This explains and key algorithm. That check is actually out in which version CD extracted all the cap archives in it using to go with the implemented default option, the exported symbols of the binary. And after scrolling through them, so the product type of our format of the CD video is linked as an integer and the product type as a string. First, the product type is converted to an integer, which then goes into the switch statement that checks our product type. As you can see, we have two main CD key checking functions. I named them check retail key and check OEM key. Now, my Windows 95